Good morning. It is 6 in the morning once again. Went to the store. It didn't rain on me this time. And today today will be a review about Initial D. I have finished the anime recently. Well, a couple of weeks ago. So I figured I'd talk about it now. So when I first got into this anime, initially I thought it was all a meme. Cause we know about the video games, and we know about the music, the running in the 90s, the deja vu, the car CGI. So I looked at it like, okay, this is probably just a meme anime that people just, talk about these things and that's it. And so me being a fan of Eurobeat and 90s dance, I decided to check out the music of the series, and it's amazing music. I think I'm going to do a review of that, which will probably take a few hours because I did like a lot of the music and I can go down track by track. But anyhow, after checking out the music, I decided to check out the first episode of First Stage just to see how the music works with the anime. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what it was like. And so I watched episode 1 of First Stage, and I got hooked. And I watched it all the way to the end. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, final stage. I think within a month I finished it. And I wasn't working around this time, so I would watch like episodes for like the whole day, and then I'd take a break, then another whole day of episodes. And I was just impressed at how good this anime is. And it was shocking to me because as I said, I thought this was just a meme. I thought it was just, those few things that made this thing stand out. But it actually has very good character development, very good stories, very good, everything basically. And so Initial D is the story of Takumi, who is a high schooler who, unbeknownst to him, his dad was training him to become an expert street racer by making him do tofu delivery in the middle of the night. So Takumi's thinking is, I want to get this done as soon as possible because I hate driving, I hate doing this. And in that process, he started building for himself ways to drive extremely fast down his road. And the dad, is like, oh, he took the bait. And so he put like the cup of water in his car and said, if you drive sloppy, you're going to spill the water. I mean, the tofu in the trunk is already like, if you drive too recklessly, you'll ruin the tofu. So Takumi is like, yeah, sure, Dad. And as the years go by, he becomes a professional racer without knowing it, out of the obnoxiousness of his dad, that he's just like, I want to get this over with very, very soon. And his dad also was a professional street racer. And I will talk about his dad because that's one of the things that I have a problem with the anime, with how they handled his dad. But I mean, he is a great character, but we'll get to that later. And so, in high school, in his high school, he has friends who are part of a street racing group. And so there's a street racing group in Japan. This is in the 90s. The author of Initial D was working with one of the street racing prodigies of the of the old days of that time, who was giving him advice on to make the anime feel more, I guess, realistic and accurate to what was happening around that time when there was street racing. And so Takumi gets involved with these friends that are into street racing, who are in a group that street races. And what happens is one of the street racers that challenges them goes into their city and is driving on the hill. And Takumi happens to be delivering sushi at that moment and bumps into this guy. And this guy is a respected street racer, Keisuke. And he has a brother who is also well respected as a street racer. And so Keisuke's like, yeah, you know what, this guy, I'm just going to smoke him. And Takumi's like, you're in the way. He's like, you're in the way. I'm trying to deliver this tofu. And he just smokes Keisuke. Just does the inertia drift right in front of Keisuke. And Keisuke's like, what the hell? And so Keisuke ends up seeking this guy to the point where he wants to race him, and that's kind of where Takumi starts to get involved. But keep in mind, Takumi doesn't know anything about racing, theoretically, because all he ever knew how to do was to deliver tofu really fast. So like he didn't even know what his car model was. He doesn't know anything about racing, anything about cars really. So his friends never suspected that he is an expert racer. And so eventually Takumi does race this guy and just completely smokes him with that movie does when he puts the tire over the sidewalk. and just smokes him completely. And just the music goes so well with it. I think they played Get Me Power and then Running in the 90s, and it was just it was amazing to see Running in the 90s play, because it's a song that's so hyped up, so memed. When I finally got to see it in episode, I think episode 4 was it, or 5, it was incredible. The Eurobeat works really well with this anime. I mean, you play the music to initially when you're driving, you're gonna start driving pretty fast. The music just has that effect on you. And so Takumi gets involved with street racing, but he doesn't really want to do it. When he raced Kisuke, he didn't do it because he wanted to race. He only did it because his dad bribed him. His dad told him, if you do this race and you win, I'll get you a full tank of gas. Because at the time he was dating that one woman who you see on the top left of the screen, who was also seeing. Well, we'll get to that, but oh yeah, they're gonna be spoilers too. So if you haven't watched the anime, and you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this. So Takumi is racing Kisuke, and Kisuke's struggling, and Kisuke's like, my pride's on the line. This guy is a nobody. How's he catching up to me? Like, I have to save my reputation. And Takumi's thinking, full tank of gas, so he can go on this date. So it's just funny how one racer is racing because of his pride, and the other racer is racing because he wants that full tank of gas so he can go on the date with his girlfriend. It's just hilarious. Like, there's other, like the scene where Love and Money plays. Kisuke is driving. I think it was Iketami, if I his name. He's driving him around, and Iketami's like screaming, like, what the hell? And Takumi's just casual, just driving, he's doing his thing. And the people on his passenger seat are just freaking out, like, whoa, like, I'm gonna die. They just don't understand the level of awesomeness in Takumi's driving. And so from there, they introduce more characters, like the one that races with the creepy music, straight up just got his car destroyed trying to beat Takumi. The other guy that he kind of has like a friendship, rivalship with, loses also. I don't know their names. It's the guy that drives the black car, and then the other guy with the mushroom haircut. So if you watch the whole anime, there's like a running gag where they're friends, but they have to make it known to the public that they're not friends, that they're enemies. So if they get too close, they like, hey, people can see us, and then they back off. I thought that was a pretty funny gimmick. There's also the people that watch the races. They're very minor characters, don't get much development at all, but they're always there, and it's funny to pick up on these characters that are somewhat there, but not really. And so then Takumi finds out that his girlfriend is seeing somebody else. Well, it's not really his girlfriend, it's more like his love interest. So she's seeing some old rich guy that's giving her money for who knows what. They don't ever really clarify it. And Takumi gets, inevitably and obviously heartbroken. What I do wonder, though, and this was never explained, is who put the note in Takumi's locker that she's seeing an older guy. Because I always thought about it, and I said, you know what? They never really said who did this. I don't know if it was hinted anywhere. But I just found that curious. Like, who was the person that put the note in Takumi's card saying that the girl he's seeing is seeing older men for money? And so Takumi follows the advice of the note and kind of, I guess, stalks, right? Her, and as expected, he sees her walking out with an older man, and he's just shocked, and he completely disowns her, and she's confused, like, what did I do? And then eventually Takumi tells her, like, I know you're seeing like a guy for money, and she's just like, oh, like, sorry. And unfortunately, they don't get a happy ending. I mean, she gets a job, and she tries to better herself, and Takumi sees this as they're distant, and he learns to be appreciative of that and respect her for moving on with her life and trying to do something with herself in terms of getting a job and starting adulthood. Unfortunately, they never get back to them. That's the last of Takumi and this woman whose name I forgot. Because Takumi gets a new love interest, and so this character is kind of just memory hold. The woman, a shame really, because I wanted to see more of her. I wanted to see more of her development. I was actually expecting Takumi to dump his second girlfriend and get back with her, with the first one, but it never happened. It never happened. Not to bash on the second girlfriend, she's pretty cool too. And so, the thing about the races is the races are all awesome. Like, you look at Dragon Ball Z fights, you look at Bleach fights, And then you have Initial D street races, and they're just on a whole another level. Like every race in this anime is fresh, has its own like edge, or not edge, but has its own spin, and it's always fresh. And it amazed me how exciting this anime can make street racing. Like there are some street races in this anime that are better than some of the best Dragon Ball Z and Beach fights. That's, I mean, but you have to see it for yourself. It's really something else. And the CGI is it works well. You know, I took huge offense with the front page interview of Initial D, because the person that made the video spent most of the time crying about the CGI, and it's like, what did you expect? It was the 90s, but it's not the quality of the CGI exactly. It's the execution, and I never had a complaint about watching first and second stage. Never had a complaint. I thought that the CGI was executed well enough that even though it was 90s technology, it was still done well. So the fact that this review spent so much time crying about the CGI, I couldn't finish it. I shut it off. And people have since liked my comment several times where I said that this video was wasted potential because it kept crying about the CGI. Shows that there's some truth to it. And so anyways, Takumi eventually starts to think about what it is he's doing. He's like, you know what, street racing? Maybe this is kind of fun. Maybe this is something that I want to do. And so he's beginning to become interested in street racing. And of course his friends want him to absolutely do it, because you know they need him, because he's a prodigy. He's a prodigy, one of the best racers probably the best racer they've ever known. But during first and second stage, Takumi is still unsure of what he wants to do, and he kind of finds it a bother to do these races. And so from there, Kisuke's brother, I forgot his name. I mean, I watched it way too fast. But anyways, well, I didn't watch it too fast, but I do know what happened. But anyways, Kisuke's brother starts to develop a group called Project D, and he asked Takumi to be a part of it. And then obviously his brother was a part of it, but he asked Takumi to be a part of it. And Takumi thought about it for a bit. He's like, yeah, you know what, I'll do it. So now I think we're at third stage, maybe. I forgot. Yeah, it should be. No, third stage was the movie. I think it happens at the end, around the end of second stage. And third stage is the movie, and then the fourth and fifth go onward. So Takumi joins this group, and Project D, the brother of Kisuke, keeps saying that he wants to finalize, or I guess find the meaning of the D in Project D. Now we don't know what the D means at this point. In fact, we don't even know what the D means till the last episode. But we kind of already were spoiled of what the D means. So if you watched Initial D first stage, the first ending was Rage Your Dream. And that's what the D stands for. The D stands for dream. So Initial D is Initial Dream. And you should have picked up on that. I didn't, because, you know, I'm just completely oblivious. But yeah, so it's called Initial Dream. And Kisuke's brother, I think it's Ryozuki. I forgot his name. But so he tries to realize his dream through this project to show what he really wants to do. And it's revealed at the end of the anime that Kisuke's brother has the dream of molding newly established racers into professionals, and that's the dream that he wanted. He is a very good driver himself, and definitely one of the best street races was around the end when he races the Grim Reaper. That was one of the best races that I've ever seen. I mean, they both almost died in that race. Because if you recall, well, I don't want to go too fast, but anyways, going back, so the anime does introduce women who are professional street racers, such as the ones you can see on the screen on the middle right. There's a whole arc between them, and I think it's Iketaki. Is that his name? I think I was saying it wrong the first time. He completely lost his chance with this racer, the one with the black hair on the screen that you can see, and he just did not trust this woman, even though he was wrong. And she basically completely submitted to him and gave herself to him. And in this part, in Initial D, he completely blows her off, doesn't even go, and then realizes the mistake that he made, and then rushes to go see her, but gets stuck in traffic. And then by the time he gets there, she's already gone, and they played Rage Your Dream. It's a very emotional part of the anime. And then there's Takumi's best friend, the little sidekick that you can see on the screen. I forgot his name also. It's been a while since I watched the anime. You can see him on the screen on the top left where it says 1998. So this sidekick, he's a very cringy type character, but he's good. He's kind of like the Krillin of Initial D, and I really like this character. He's voiced by the guy that voiced was it Kaneda in Akira? Kind of interesting. Oh yeah. Also, the guy that voiced Takumi is the voice of Hat and Clogs from Bleach, Urahara, I think. Anyhow, so this sidekick of Takumi's, he might come off as annoying and obnoxious to some people, but to me, I just felt he was very passionate about his friend. He's very supportive of his friend. He is the one guy that never gave up on Takumi, always believed in him, always supported him. And so I have a lot of respect for this guy. He did have his own arcs where he tried to get at women and he failed horribly so, but it did well to build this character. Like there's the part where he is seeing this woman, and he is so confident that he'll choose her, or he'll choose him, or that she would choose him over her ex that she's been on and off with, I suppose. And as he's ready to take her in, she chooses the ex, and then he just starts crying and bawling, and Ikitaki and his friends see this, and it's just like I felt really bad for this guy. Like this guy, he's just a very wholesome friend, and I really appreciate him in this series. I thought he was going to be an obnoxious, type of character, but he has very good character development. He's just overall one of the best characters in Initial D, so I was very impressed by that. So moving on along, so I guess we'll talk about Takumi's dad, whose name is Bunta, it's Bunta. So Bunta was is basically a retired professional racer. It is unknown exactly how good he is in the anime, and that's wasted potential in my opinion. I'll tell you why. One of the mistakes of Initial D is to not explore more the character of Bunta. We all wanted to see him race. You could say, yeah, he's retired. He's not. He's not. He's retired, right? However, you recall when Takumi was driving down the street and a blue car approaches him from behind, and he's like, "Oh, this guy wants to race." And Takumi starts racing him, and he's like, "Wow, this guy's really aggressive." And he pulls off his trick over the sidewalk, and so does the car behind him. And he's like, "What?" And the car just straight up smokes him. And you can see the person in the car like grinning, like, "Yeah, I just beat your ass." Well, that was Bunta. That was Bunta. That was Takumi's dad. Later on, Takumi sees the car in his at his house, and he's like, "Dad, like what?" And that was you. He's like, I should have known it was you." So Bunta's an incredibly talented driver. There's a scene where he takes the old guy, the boss from the gas station. There's a scene where he allows him to see him drive, and the guy is like screaming for his life because Bunta is drifting on the street with no hands, lighting a cigarette, and the guy's just like, "What are you doing? You're gonna kill me!" So Bunta, in my opinion, Bunta is probably the best racer in the whole series. It's just that they never had him race once. I was really looking forward to seeing him in at least one race. All we got was the teaser of him smoking Takumi. So I think that's lost potential, something that the anime should have done. At least one race involving his dad, but they never did it. So it's a mystery how good Bunta is, but it's obvious that he is better than Takumi, at least at that point in the anime. So that was lost potential. Another lost potential, Iketami, the girl that he was seeing, Mako, was that her name? Mako, I forgot. The one on the screen with the black hair. So she came back, right? Eventually she comes back into the series, but her and Iketami never interact. And I thought that was just lost potential. Like, we were all expecting them to get back together. No, they were like in the same area at some point, and they didn't even interact. But he did kind of abandon her though, so I could understand why that happened. But I was really hoping that they would get back to that. So I think that covers a lot of the anime. So towards the end, there's the Grim Reaper. There's the people that play dirty. There's so another good part of the anime was God Hands and God Feet. The fat one, I forgot whether he was God Foot. I thought he was a really, really cool character. I mean, he lost because, but he was a very, very well-written character. And then this God Hand, who was the guy that races Takumi towards the end, that race was probably the longest race in the anime. And Takumi only won because the guy threw up, because I guess he just got overwhelmed by the amount of stress he was experiencing through the race. So now, around fifth stage, final stage, Takumi seeing a new love interest who hated him at first. There were these impersonators that are pretending to be Takumi and Keisuke, and one of them used this one girl and kind of tossed her to the side. And that girl has a friend who wanted to take revenge, and so she thought that the one that looked like Takumi was the one doing it. And so the girl went to the gas station to go find this guy and basically slapped Takumi in the face. And Takumi's like, "What?" She's like, "That's for my friend." And then she finds out that it was a misunderstanding, that they were being impersonated. That led to the scene where gas plays and Takumi drifts through the beginning. I think it was fifth stage, and they completely just embarrassed these guys that were imitations. And so she apologized to Takumi, but then they kind of click and have like a thing, and they end up becoming very intimate, very close to each other. They don't conclude it in the anime, but they're obviously together. So that was very cute. One of the most wholesome scenes in the anime was when they went on their date. I think it was at the end of fifth stage, where they played the song "Wait for You" as they go on their date. That was definitely one of the most wholesome moments in all of Initial D, and one of the very few moments where I had to stop the anime to see what song this was. So I would definitely say check out the song "Wait for You." It's a very wholesome song to a very wholesome moment in the anime. And so then, at the end of the anime, moving on towards final stage. It's been a long video, hasn't it? 20. Wow. All my other anime reviews were like 10 minutes at most. So at the end of the anime, approaching final stage, Takumi does one last race against this young kid who happens to have a similar background to him. He didn't mean to be a racer, but he was exposed to conditions that made him a good racer. Like, the mom would drive down the same road for years, and the kid would, observe the street, observe everything, and so he memorized the entire route. And so Takumi had to race this kid who was like a prodigy. You see him in throughout the series towards the end. He's like this kid that seems to be very informative or very knowledgeable, but it's kind of surprising that he becomes the last opponent, because they don't hint at that at all. He's just this guy that can kind of look at a cart. Sorry, he's this guy that can look at a racer and just completely be able to read them and tell you about them. So this is Takumi's final opponent. And in this last race is Mako is involved, and this guy is trying to impress her. So in the race, he smokes Takumi several times. Like, just overtakes him in front of Mako to impress her too. But then Takumi also comes back and overtakes him. So they're going back and forth. And at the very end of the race, they're pretty much tied. And Hisuke's brother Ryosuke told him that he had put a thing in his engine that he can go on hyper mode and go extremely fast, but that it was risky. So Takumi takes it and uses it, and his engine blows up. And he's like, "Oh no!" And he quickly does a 180 and goes in reverse. And then the other car is like the opponent is like kind of panicking, like, what's going on? And he brakes. So Takumi ends up winning the race at the end, going in reverse with a blown up engine. So that it was quite a way to end with the final race. I mean, the final race did not disappoint. It was definitely the most intense one. The second most intense race was the Grim Reaper one, where they have the Ryosuke arc, where he's settling his past with the girl he loved that passed away, committed suicide, and then the Grim Reaper, who was the other guy that was in love with the girl. They have a race where the Grim Reaper is basically trying to kill him in the race by bumping him, and Ryosuke, using his skill, manages to dodge his bumping techniques. And towards the end, he basically beats the Grim Reaper, but the Grim Reaper's car becomes unable to brake, and so he's heading straight towards a I think it was like a toll booth, and Ryosuke ends the race at that point and decides to get in front of his car, and he brakes to try to stop it, but he realizes that he can't stop it, it's too late. But they had a third car, or a third racer that was kind of like watching them, and he gets involved, and he helps stop and bring the car to a halt. If he wasn't there, both the Grim Reaper and Ryosuke would have probably died. But that was also a very intense race. Yeah, so the street races get better, and definitely the last ones are the best. What I like about these races is that they're not just races per se, because they break down the psychology and the philosophy behind street racing, the mentality of the driver. It gets explored deeply in the anime, and it works really, really well. So Initial D ends at this point. We do have a few plot holes and things that didn't really get touched on that I talked about before, but overall, this is an amazing anime. Please do not start watching this at fourth stage. Too many people do not watch first, second, and third stage, and it annoys me to no end. But it is definitely an amazing anime, one of my favorites. Definitely check it out. So that's all I got to say about this. This is the 1 subscriber special because I have 1 subscriber, so this goes out to you, I guess. And I'll see you in the next review. I am watching. What did I finish recently? I did Welcome to the NHK. I am currently on Technolize, so my next review will be on Technolize. I'm almost done with it, by the way.